Hey there, I'm John Hayes, and thanks for joining us for this episode of the Founders Trust podcast. Today, we're discussing how new founders can approach the beginning of their startup journey. I spoke with Cheri Williams-Franklin, the founder of Life Snapshot, an early stage digital estate planning startup right here in Chicago. Cheri and I discuss how she started her business, the resources she turned to for guidance as a first time founder, the benefits of accelerator programs, and a whole lot more. So I'm really looking forward to sharing Cheri's insights with you. And stick around to the end of the episode for our free giveaway. Today, we'll be sharing a tech stack you can use to build and launch a product in less than a week without any code, which is perfect for my non technical founders out there. So let's jump right in. Today's Startup Spotlight is brought to you by Savier. Savier takes a personalized approach to helping entrepreneurs create a clear path to growth through knowledge, coaching, and marketing services. Savier helps entrepreneurs and small business owners apply marketing to achieve their business goals. At Savier, our goal is to empower entrepreneurs to achieve marketing success. Check them out at Savier, that's savvyeur.com today.
Hello, I'm Cheri, and I'm the founder of Life Snapshot. The reality is that our lives can change in an instant for a number of reasons, but the most startling truth is that every 11 seconds, someone dies in the US. My 11-second moment occurred in 2015 when my sister died suddenly at the age of 36, and finalizing her personal affairs became the responsibility of my mother and I. And we had so many questions. Is there life insurance to cover these funeral expenses? Where did she bank? How do we contact her landlord? And as an entrepreneur, how do we contact her employees? I found myself in her home just 2 days after she passed away, looking through her belongings, which feels like a complete invasion of privacy, while struggling to find the information that the funeral home was requesting of us with no success. I can recall randomly calling insurance companies to determine if they had a record of her as a policyholder, and everyone said no. It took us almost 2 years to unravel her affairs. Her lack of preparation and our uncertainty as to where to find her asset information is what directly contributes to the roughly $40 billion in unclaimed money and properties being held by the US government because beneficiaries are often unaware that these assets exist. With roughly $7.4 billion alone in unclaimed life insurance policies. Understanding this further validates the need for a proactive solution to support end-of-life planning, but more importantly, protect the financial legacy of families. The mission of Life Snapshot is to safeguard our members' personal assets through secure storage and proactive customer support. Our digital storage vault protects personal assets, final wishes, and critical documents so families can easily find them while dealing with a hospitalization or end of life. We aren't like any other solution in the market because our support specialists proactively conduct monthly well-being checks so that when the unexpected happens, they can relay information to those listed as designated contacts on our members' accounts. Throughout the pandemic, we had multiple members hospitalized. For those that had medical power of attorney or advance directives on file, we were able to support their families by immediately sharing those documents with their designated contacts electronically, providing them instant access and the ability to make timely decisions. Our process is simple. Answer questions about your assets. Identify your designated contacts. Select your well-being check preferences, and in less than 5 minutes, you can complete onboarding. Life Snapshot's platform consolidates assets such as banking details, pensions, 401k, properties, and vehicles into a single report that is encrypted and safely stored online without the need for social security numbers or account numbers. Our platform is desktop and mobile friendly with features such as a mobile document upload so you can add files on the go, as well as internal and external file sharing so you can share documents with loved ones inside and outside of the Life Snapshot system. Customers have communicated that it has taken them roughly 15 minutes to have a fully customized snapshot report to support positive end-of-life planning. Following my sister's death, I've spent the past 5 years passionately working to create a solution that puts families on the path to preparedness for the future. Thank you.
Spotlight segment here with the Founders Trust podcast. I am tremendously honored to be joined by a friend and a fellow founder, Cheri Williams-Franklin, the founder of Life Snapshot. You just heard that terrific demo and pitch video. I've been very honored to know Cheri for, I guess, a little bit over a year now, right? I think it was when you last went through the Founder Institute Accelerator program and we were able to connect. And I'm so excited to have you on today to talk about a really important topic in where founders get started. So thanks for joining us today, Cheri.
Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, it was just about a year ago that you helped me with all of my accounting documents. So thank you for that.
Well, and certainly the accounting piece and figuring out the books and kind of, financial statements, all that is a big part and an overwhelming part for a lot of founders, right? As they're getting started and starting to put the infrastructure together for everything that, is encompassed in building a company for the first time. So, one thing you talk about in your pitch video is the fact that your idea for Life Snapshot came from your own experience with estate planning. And, was there a certain moment when you realized out of that experience that you really wanted to take your idea and then turn it into a business? And what did that process kind of look like for you?
Yeah, no, that's an excellent question. So, for me, I never thought to monetize this experience, but, really went on a quest to find a solution for my family for the future. My sister had mentioned to me in passing a few years prior that she had life insurance, but I didn't ask any questions. I was like most people and kind of said, okay, because end of life planning is difficult to, discuss and just kind of know what to do next. And so most people like to put their affairs in order privately and never really talk about it with anyone. So I started to look for solutions that would allow my family to be better prepared. And I just didn't find anything that would allow me to not only store documents, but have a human connection as part of the process.
Well, it is such a difficult topic for family members, loved ones, et cetera, to address, right? And that's what I think is so special about Life Snapshot is it takes something that is so personal and feelings and moments that are so vulnerable and kind of transforms, what it still has to necessarily be done as part of that, process into something that's much more manageable for, the people you're leaving behind and your family and friends. So it's, I give you a lot of credit for wanting to approach what can be such a sensitive topic for a lot of people and turning it into something that makes their grieving and their transition process, a little bit easier, right? The emotional side will always be difficult, but this piece, which can be overwhelming, especially, with feelings of grief, et cetera. This, what you guys are doing at Life Snapshot is so critical. And I'm so excited to, be able to share that with our listeners today. So once you knew that you wanted to start the business, what was kind of the very first thing you did to get started or what resources did you look to? How did you approach really getting Life Snapshot off the ground?
Well, that's a great question. I mean, for me, my background is almost 20 years in sales and marketing and research and development for mid to large size manufacturing companies across the country. And so I've spent much of my career taking projects from concept to commercialization. So the first step for me is always going to be validation to make sure that, what I believe to be the problem is a real problem. I think that's the biggest mistake most founders make is not fully validating the issue. And so for me, my aunt happens to own a funeral home here in Chicago.
Oh,
And, scheduled a meeting with her first to understand, is this a real struggle for families? And of course, she said yes. And then I started to network with others in the end of life planning space to understand their perspective on the issue, and started to interview friends and family to understand if they had a perspective. And I think if you ask anyone that's lost a loved one, you'll immediately get a horror story about them trying to put their families, put their loved ones' affairs in order, and the struggle of finding the documents, and the struggle of finding the information, and the struggle of not knowing that they had these particular assets. And so that's when I knew, it was time to move forward. That was the first step.
Absolutely. You talk about validation, and it is such a key piece to the process that often gets overlooked, right? And not that, people do it negligently or, try to avoid the topic, but people get so excited about their business idea, right? They get so
Right.
excited to jump into something, which is great. And you need that passion, you need that fire, you need that energy, but you have to have some, some basis for the idea, right? And the
Right.
validation piece is really, really difficult. And we'll get more into that a little bit, I think, when we start talking about accelerator programs and some of the more structural resources that founders can turn to for help with, validation and those types of things. But, when you first started, right, we talk about that natural energy and passion and fire. What were you most excited for in starting a business? And then
Yeah.
what were your kind of greatest worries, right? Because every founder to some degree has that feeling that, she or he is missing some kind of pieces to the puzzle, right? Whether it's expertise, whether it's connections, capital, whatever it is. And where did you feel like those gaps were for you as you were getting started out?
Yeah. So for me, I was excited about the business, just knowing that I was going to be contributing to meaningful work and making a difference in the lives of other families, but also thinking about it as a way to honor my sister's memory in a real way, right? So Life Snapshot became a little bit of therapy for me. I started out, I was very afraid to even talk about her. And I tried to detach myself from the company and my story from the company. So my biggest fear was really opening myself up to be vulnerable, to be included. So I thought, hey, I can start Life Snapshot and, just put it out there and people will understand it, but not necessarily tell them the why behind it. And that doesn't work. And so that was the thing that, I was afraid of, because it puts me in a vulnerable place. And then how much do you share? How much do you not share? And so those were the points that were scary for me. But knowing that I am making a difference in the lives of other families, so that hopefully they don't have to struggle the way that my family did, that is what brings excitement. That's what gets me out of bed every day. Knowing that we're helping families on a regular basis, that's where the energy comes from.
Well, and you talk about vulnerability, and it's such a common feeling among startup founders, not only in the fact that they're putting themselves out there with this brand new idea, right? It's not an established company. They don't necessarily know where to start.
Yeah.
People are telling them they're crazy, right? Because
Yes.
this will never work. And I think, I think the why is the most important, kind of driver behind overcoming those feelings of vulnerability. And especially in your case as well, when you're kind of going through that emotional grieving process, you probably felt extra vulnerable, right? And you touched on validation earlier. And I'm sure in a lot of ways, the vulnerability that you felt in your experience founding the company has probably led you to, you know, really find that validation in the market in some ways. And what I mean by that is your experience has allowed you to connect with your target customer who's feeling that same vulnerability, right? That's
Right. Absolutely.
and I think that's really powerful. And in a lot of ways, what makes startups special in ways that, larger corporations, they don't quite have that feeling. It's not just kind of the fast, agile, quick decision, quick progress type scenario. It's the fact that, at least in my perspective, there's a certain humanization of startups, right? And it's very clear to early adopters and early customers that you're trying to attack some sort of mission or, fulfill some sort of goal. And that vulnerability and that humanization make it so much more compelling for people to want to support you, right? And so,
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And here's what I'll say is, I initially launched the company in November 2019 privately, right? So it was my birthday. I was having a big birthday bash downtown. I didn't tell anyone. I have been working on this for quite some time. Less than 10 people really knew what I was doing. And this had been in the works for years. And so, I've got this big birthday bash planned in November. I've got 70 of my closest friends. We're doing dinner at Francesca's on Chestnut downtown in the wine cellar. And midway through dinner, we get up and I make an announcement and I show a video of that's now on our website. I show this promo video and the back end prototype of the platform, and the room went crazy. And it was exciting because I hadn't necessarily surveyed 70 people yet. And so it was just the amount of love and support from that small, group was helpful. But then as on the business side of that, half the room signed up to beta test our solution. And then the other half signed up to be on a small little wait list, or not quite half, but a small little group signed up to wait list for when the product launched in March of 2020. And so when we went live day one, we had customers, right? We didn't have, everyone didn't sign up immediately, but we had a couple of sales day one. We were really excited about that. And so just having some level of preparation and validation is what you need. That's what's going to give you the energy. That's the excitement. Those are the types of activities that are going to help propel you forward, right?
Absolutely. And that's such a great story because, I think a lot of entrepreneurs kind of have one or two of those moments where they feel like this is real, right?
Yeah.
Or, I finally made it in some way. There's some sort of validation, maybe beyond the sales or getting an investment, whatever it may be, that kind of reaffirms what I'm doing with the company.
Yeah.
And that's such a great story because everyone needs that, right?
Yeah.
Everyone needs those kind of emotional boosts because it is a roller coaster and it is, a series of up and downs, good and bad days, and you have to really connect with that mission.
And let me say this, our prototype, our MVP wasn't pretty, right? It was definitely the minimum, right? It was the minimum viable product. And so to have people sign up for that, I was like, okay, these are people that really love me and support me for sure, because there was zero lipstick on the pig. It was just a pig, and we wanted to see if it worked. And one of the other things that we did is, the few people that signed up early on, I personally called them, texted them, checked in with them. Any feedback that we received, we made adjustments within 72 hours. And then we checked back in with them to make sure that they saw the adjustment and that was what they had hoped for. And so it was great. It was great to have people that you can make mistakes with be your first few customers.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that's really key too, is understanding that, who your ultimate customer may not necessarily be the first person you're dealing with, right? I think some founders make that leap a little too early and that they're trying to get everything perfect for the perfect target customer, right? But taking a look at maybe who are some early adopters who will kind of go through the growing pains with us, offer the constructive feedback, and help us get to where we want to go is often much more important, right? And much more.
Absolutely.
How did you think about kind of sourcing feedback from early customers? And how did you know that your idea was really validated in the market? Were there, certain metrics you were looking at? Or was there a certain moment where you said, okay, this is really, we're getting some traction here in a way that we can build on?
Yeah, once I knew that the actual business model itself made sense, then I knew, okay, this is a winner. Whether we sell, 2 people or 1 million people in the first, year or two, this has merit to it. This is a real opportunity and people need what we're offering. I knew that was real. And so just talking to people, talking to those early adopters really helped us iterate. I mean, we're on probably our fourth iteration in the first 9 months.
Oh, wow.
So we spent, 12 weeks in 2019 going through user assessments, talking to existing customers. We did a partnership with Flatiron here in Chicago to get students to do some validation work for us, also getting some course credit for them, real world experience for them. We worked with Springboard, which is another student program, to do some additional validation work for us. So really, again, my background is sales and marketing and research and development. Going back and constantly validating the adjustments that you're making along the way is helpful. And using those types of free resources to do some of that legwork is fantastic, because not only were they talking to people that were existing customers, they were talking to prospects that didn't know us. So they have no skin in the game and they can be completely honest, and they were. And that helps you get better. If you're only taking feedback from the people that love you, it's not going to propel you forward. You have to find people that don't know you, they don't know anything about your business or your product, so that you can get honest feedback on how to move your business forward.
Oh, for sure. Couldn't have said it better myself, Cheri. I mean, really,
Yeah.
the emotional support from the people who love you is great, but the progress comes from the constructive feedback, right? From people who have no vested interest, have not been with you, have not necessarily bought into the mission, right? They're just there to really tell you what works and what doesn't. And that's really where, that foot of progress comes from.
And I would say for me, I wasn't looking for a ton of sales last year. I was looking to, again, validate. I was looking to make the adjustments, because the last thing you want to do as a new business is get in front of too many people too fast, and you haven't done all the testing along the way. We just implemented a new trial. We launched it right after the first of the year. I didn't tell anyone about the trial. I text cousins that had not signed up yet and said, hey, test out my new trial so I can make sure that it works. And they said, okay. And they signed up and they tested the trial one after the other. And one gave me feedback. Oh, the receipt said that I had to pay. Okay, well, let's fix that. And we fixed it. And then the next one, oh no, the receipt was fine. So everything I test before I get out in front of a huge group. And I think 2021 for us is going to be amazing, because again, we spent all of 2020 validating and doing the user research and getting insights that now we're in a place where we can really pull the trigger.
Well, certainly you built a really strong foundation and you've done the testing, and it does help if you have a big family who you can kind of rope in and doing some of those tests, right?
Yeah.
Take advantage of some
cousins. You can pass up a free trial, like it's
right.
a 14-day free trial. Your card is not being billed. Go ahead and check out the platform.
That's right. If you don't, I'll remind you at the Christmas party next year.
Yeah, if you need to cancel by day 15, but you got 2 weeks to figure this out.
There you go. So, but you touch on so many great factors there of testing, validating, understanding that the first version is not the perfect version or the final version, right?
No.
A lot of entrepreneurs, myself included, have fallen into that trap of just wanting it to be so great from day one. And you have to validate the core assumptions behind it. So I'm really glad you touched on that. One other point you touched on, Cheri, was, being able to leverage the resources that are out there. Right. And, a small team, maybe even just a couple co-founders at any given time, these early stage founder teams are looking for the best ways to maximize their resources, maximize their time, find ways to, kind of make progress without necessarily bringing on a new employee, or where it might be too early to do so. Right. So, you touched on, Flatiron School and some of these different resources. How did you go about, finding those resources, connecting with them, and then ultimately, kind of convincing them to work with you, or being on the same page to work together towards making progress on Life Snapshot? Because I think that sort of operational leverage, as I like to call it, is one of the biggest things that early founders need to take advantage of. And how did you kind of approach that?
Yeah, so let me just back up and say I'm a non-technical founder. So in the beginning, before I knew that tech accelerators existed or really had any idea how to go about this, I started to network with people, friends in the technology space that I knew of randomly. And so I would ask them questions and try to get their understanding of, how I should even think about approaching this. And then I realized there are technology accelerators or even business accelerators out there that can help make some of those introductions. And so that's where I started. As you mentioned and alluded to earlier, that's how we met. And the benefit of many of those accelerators is some of these relationships that I've outlined. So I met Flatiron through one of the accelerators. I met the Springboard team through a separate accelerator. I met a mentor through an AWS networking event. And so beyond just accelerators, also networking opportunities. So like AWS has a great networking opportunity. They offer a 4 to 6 week mentorship opportunity, which also gives you credits for moving forward with their platform if you decide to use them. I have an AWS mentor that I was only supposed to meet with for 6 to 8 weeks. We continue to meet to, 6 months later because he's in the business. He signed up. He's a member and is on my advisory team at this point from a security perspective. So I think it's that type of, really just getting in, putting yourself out there to network in an environment that maybe isn't comfortable for you, so that you can collaborate with others that are in a similar boat and really point you in the right direction.
And being comfortable with being uncomfortable is, I think, one of the more difficult pieces of being a founder, right? And it doesn't matter whether you come from a technical background or a business background, whatever it may be, you have to put yourself out there because you are wearing so many hats and you have to, right? So, I'm really glad you touched on the networking piece, and it's something that a lot of people aren't necessarily, comfortable with, and what's becoming an increasingly virtual world. And that was even before COVID, right? I'm sure maybe it'll be better now that people want to get back, see people in person, maybe head back to the office, right? Maybe that'll change a little bit, but
Honestly, throughout the pandemic, it's made me more social. It's pushed me to try mastermind classes or online courses or online networking events, so that I could engage with others. So I wouldn't even, say that it has to be in person. I think if you are at a point where you want to move your business forward, you'll look for opportunities that might be virtual that will help you. Founders Network, for example, is a networking group that I'm a part of, and it costs, but it's definitely worth it. It's worth it for me. We struggled as we wanted to transition our payment gateways, and the development team couldn't seem to get the webhook to work, and like all this stuff. And I put out a quick email to the network, and within 10 minutes, like 5 people responded and gave me clear directions on it, exactly a step-by-step what should happen. And everyone's telling me the type of webhook, and everyone's telling me exactly what needed to happen. I was able to have that conversation with the dev team and say, hey, what are we missing here? Try this, let's get it done. And we did. And so I think you have to look for, opportunities in, whether it's, in a pandemic or out, that are going to help you move the needle on your business.
That's a true. Really, just that investing in yourself,
Yeah.
but also in your network, right? Because as an early stage founder, that's so key. And what's crazy is, from my experience, and hopefully it's been the same for you, you kind of come across these moments where, maybe you're able to take a call with someone, or someone agrees to meet with you, and it ends up being such a key step to moving your business forward in a very concrete way. And heading into the meeting, maybe you thought, oh, I don't exactly know what's going to come out of this. I have hopes, but I don't fully know. Or, maybe someone just makes a connection and just says, oh, I told them a little bit about your business and they'd love to learn more. And then that person becomes such a tremendous advocate for you, or helps you with a piece of your tech development, or, makes another connection to an investor or another, startup you can partner with. And it's those kind of key moments that I think really define not only the whole life cycle of a startup, but really the early stages, right? Where it's kind of step by step and people are helping you along the way. And that's been one of the most rewarding parts I've found. And I'm so glad you had that story about Founders Network, because it's kind of those little moments that
Yeah.
help a lot of progress that make it a really worthwhile journey.
I agree. And I mean, look at us. We met through an accelerator, and, there are people, we weren't even in the same group, right? We weren't in the same class. You were ahead of me. And, some people didn't, make it to the end. Some people made it to the end and aren't in business anymore. But there are certain people that you connect with, and what they're doing and what you're doing seem to really resonate well with one another, and it helps propel you forward. So I'm very grateful for the connections that I've been able to make, and the great people that I've met, that I feel like we're in this together. I say all the time, the best way to move you forward is to build your tribe. Who's in your tribe? Who are the people that you can pick up the phone and say, listen, I'm struggling in this area. I need your thoughts. And they'll give it to you. That's what you want.
And they give it to you in a constructive way, right?
In a constructive way.
Additive way. It's not just kind of feel-good sugarcoat support, which is really important, as we've talked about. So I know we've touched on accelerators quite a bit now, but maybe for people who are a little bit less familiar or less familiar with programs we went through, they're an increasingly popular option, and they're a great structure for kind of validating your business and providing some support, especially I think for first-time founders, right? Where they're kind of figuring out their way as they go. There's obviously upsides and downsides. You've participated in a few different accelerator programs, obviously including the Founder Institute, which we were both a part of here in Chicago. But how have accelerators helped you develop Life Snapshot, and what did you think were some of the strongest benefits that you got out of working with one of those types of programs?
Yeah, for me, it really has been the partnerships that they have. So as I mentioned earlier, all of those resources that I mentioned that helped me do some validation work, and help us, make some improvements on our UI UX. Those came from connections through their partnership relationships. So, and the savings. So one, for example, AWS, they offer up $10,000 credits if you move through their platform. You can't get that if you're not participating in an accelerator. There was one that had just come up with Stripe. It's $50,000 for the first $50,000. They'll waive your fees if you're part of an accelerator. That's potentially $2,500 that you save because you went through an accelerator and you're able to use that resource. So for me, accelerators have been very helpful in some of the partnership relationships that they offer that you just don't even know that are out there in terms of moving your business forward. And that's the resource side. I think the connections you make with some mentors, I think you have to walk in and know that, everyone's opinion is different. You've got to, my granny used to say, eat the meat, spit out the bones. You got to take what you can that makes sense for you, and be willing to push aside the things that maybe aren't necessarily 100% valuable for you. So that would be my take on accelerators.
That's a great point, is that they're a great structure, right? But it's not necessarily, as we've talked about, all, sugarcoating, right? You're going to get some honest feedback, but that's really where I think the value comes in, especially from the mentors who are oftentimes investors, partners, former founders themselves who have kind of been through the startup grind, right? And have a little more removed view to say, this might work, you might want to consider this. And sometimes that feedback is difficult to hear, especially when you've been working so hard to build a certain piece of your business, or work on your business model, whatever it may be. But though that kind of feedback is really critical, because even if it's not ultimately the direction that you need to or should take, it at least forces you to step back, pause, and consider what that would look like if you were to take that direction with your business, right? And I think that exercise is almost as valuable as actually executing the decision that you ultimately make. So
I agree with that. And I think anyone that's considering an accelerator needs to walk in with thick skin, right? They need to be prepared to listen to differing viewpoints, differing opinions on how you might want to consider, moving your business forward. They may have different recommendations on how you should structure your business. They might have different viewpoints on how you even want to price your business. And so come in with some level of validation so that you can make it very clear why you're doing what you're doing, but also be open to some suggestions and maybe test multiple models so that you can get to a place that makes sense for you.
That's a great point. You definitely have to have that thick skin for sure, because you're going to get a lot of different feedback, and it can be very difficult to kind of filter through all those comments and pick out the pieces that are helpful versus the ones that, the reality is maybe the mentor just isn't that familiar with that particular market or that particular model, whatever it may be. So
that's exactly right. You're bringing up an excellent point. Every mentor is not in your space, and they don't necessarily understand exactly how how it could function best. And so you have to recognize that you want to identify mentors that seem to really that are willing to take the time to understand your business. That's number one. But then once they understand it, are giving you advice that's sound based on the industry in which you're working in, not something that they've done before. It's similar, but not necessarily related. You want to find people that have done something in your space so that they are giving you sound advice and they can make introductions that hopefully benefit you going forward.
No, that's a good point. And kind of maintaining that ongoing relationship, right? And you've been through a couple different accelerator programs, Cheri. Have you felt that, and this is one I think people's concern about before they join, before they're in it, is that it's kind of maybe a 4-month thing or 6-month thing, and I'm giving up some equity in my company and then I'm not going to get the longer term benefits, right? But has that been your experience, or do you feel like you've really been able to kind of maintain those relationships and connectivity to those accelerator programs and mentors, after you've left and graduated from those programs?
Yeah, I think it's a mixed bag, right? I think there have been some mentors that have been amazing and they're still in my network. And if when I feel like I'm ready to have further conversations with them, I can, most of which are investors. And so, I feel like there's been some real significant progress. Several of the investor conversations that I had early on came from, being in an accelerator. I'm in an accelerator that, ends next month. We just went through demo week. And within 24 hours, I had a meeting set up with an investor because they were at demo week. So there's definitely value in opening doors that you might not potentially get to on your own. And I think anyone should, depending on where you are in your business, be open to the possibility and make sure that you're clear on what it is you want out of each accelerator. If you're an early stage that's still trying to validate your business and still trying to flesh out the idea, then find an accelerator that's going to help advance you in that area. If you've gotten to a place where you've launched and you're in the market and you want an accelerator that's going to start to make investor introductions for you, which is what I'm doing, then that's where you want to focus your attention and have some support behind you to do some of that for you. So it really is dependent on where you are. I think it can be amazing depending on what you're looking for.
Coming into the program with intentionality, right? And understanding that, especially at the early stage, people are coming from so many different places. So with Founder Institute, for example, you could come in as a company that was already established. You kind of had your idea, maybe some validation, maybe some revenue already, or you could come in at really the idea stage and even come in with a few different ideas and have something that you ultimately narrowed down to and then built a company from there. And the priorities or the intentions of those founders at kind of both ends of the spectrum in coming into that type of program was very different. Some were looking for the mentorship and connections to investors, right? Because they already had revenue, they had a business model, et cetera. Others were just coming in to help with idea validation, starting to understand the overall startup ecosystem in Chicago,
right?
And coming at it from a much different angle. And ultimately, whether they went through the program or not, left the program or graduated from the program at a very different place with very different expectations, right? And so I think accelerated programs are great when you come in with intentionality and know what you want to get out of them, because they're fast paced, they're often demanding. There's a lot that goes on, as you know, and you have to fulfill those obligations, right?
There's a real commitment, right? There's a real commitment. There's, not just an investment in terms of the financial investment that you're making up front by, paying to participate, but then there's all the work that comes along with, execution. And so you have to make sure that you're prepared for that. You're willing to carve out the time that's required to do that. If you have a team, that you're able to delegate some responsibilities to them so that this becomes, really helpful for the organization, not just you as an individual, but helpful for the organization and is positioning you for longevity.
That's a great point as well. In that it's not just about you as the solo person or solo founder, but ultimately how is this going to benefit your organization? And I think
Right.
Sometimes there's a certain credibility aspect that comes with going through an accelerator, right? Both externally and internally when you're trying to recruit team members, but it has to be, you can't just do it for kind of the street cred, right? Or the
Right.
you have to really engage in the commitment and come in with a certain intention. So
Absolutely.
so I guess, you've touched on AWS, you've touched on a few other resources. Was there anything else that you really found helpful in turning to for, I don't know, operational support, guidance, financial support, whatever it may be as an early stage founder? Any one or two particular resources kind of outside of the ones we've mentioned already that you think, an early stage founder who's just getting started and is a little bit behind in the process from where you and I are would find particularly helpful?
I don't know that there's anything else that I would say other than, when you're first starting out, just make sure you have a clear plan on, how you're going to invest in your business. For me, I'm very proud to say that we're 100% self-funded, debt-free, because there was a strategy attached to how to, pay for these development costs. And I think everyone needs to think about what it is you're trying to accomplish, in what time frame, what do you need to accomplish that, and then determine, is this something that you'll be able to do independently, or do you need investors? And what does that look like? And so AWS does something that I absolutely love, which is they say, write your press release. What do you want it to say in the next 5 years, 10 years? And then go backwards and start to craft the strategy that gets you there. So if your end strategy is a merger, an acquisition, a strategic partnership with, a specific company, that's the headline that you want to see. What steps do you need to take to get there? So I absolutely love that. And if any resource aside from the partnership things that are out there for startup founders, I would say that is a thinking strategy that I would recommend that people consider.
That's excellent advice, Cheri. And I think really, just taken from practical experience, right?
Yeah.
Our own and also from working with other founders and just our general networks and specifically in accelerator programs too. That's terrific. Want to finish up here with our very fun segment of our 3-question grand finale.
Okay.
So questions are fun. The first of which is, what's really been your favorite moment working with Life Snapshot thus far? Has there been one or two, particular moments that really stand out to you as, either you felt like you really made it or just something that really stood out to you as your favorite?
Yeah, I had done a TV segment with the List TV, and they had me on, and that was really exciting. And so that was my first national spotlight for the company, and I really enjoyed that team. They are amazing. They aired in 40% of the country, and so when I was on TV, I felt, I got a text message from a colleague in Michigan who said, "Hey, I just saw you on TV." I was like, "You did?" They didn't even tell me the segment had aired yet. And so I found out through text messaging. So that was great. It happened right before Thanksgiving. And I thought, oh, wow, that's exciting. So that's probably my fondest moment. Just randomly finding out, from a text message from a friend that they just saw me on TV.
Well, I'm extra appreciative for you joining our show then, because we're a national TV presence coming to our local podcast. So thank you for joining us, Cheri.
Absolutely. We're friends. You're in my tribe, so I can't say no.
I always appreciate that. So next question of the 3-question grand finale. In what ways do you feel like you've personally grown through this experience of working with your company and building it and going through that whole roller coaster of being an early stage founder?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, for me, I've grown in my ability to share my personal story because, as I mentioned earlier, it just isn't something that was comfortable for me. It wasn't natural for me. It felt like it's such a private thing. It was very, very hard for me to do that. And so going through accelerators, having to pitch my company, being asked over and over and over again, like the why, helped me overcome that. So that's my biggest growth, is just the ability to now talk about my, sister and what she meant to me without falling apart has been fantastic.
Oh, I can imagine it. Yeah, we touched on it earlier. It's such a vulnerable place, and for you to be able to take that moment or take that experience and transform it into something to help other people deal with similar feelings, I think is just it's a tremendous mission, and it's incredibly powerful, and customers resonate with that. And I think you've really seen that through the traction you've had. So, last question: what's the one thing that your company really needs to take that next big step or reach that next big milestone? And it could be, kind of capital, an introduction to a key hire, maybe a connection to a strategic partner, whatever it is. What's your one ask that our Founders Trust community here can help assist you with to help, Life Snapshot get to where you want to go?
Yeah, no, I love that question. That's my favorite one so far. I mean, for us, I'm really looking for strategic partners in the financial services space that are willing to evaluate Life Snapshot. Our business motto is B2B2C. And so if we can, find a strategic partner to introduce us to their customer base, that would be fantastic. So that's what we're working towards. Those are the types of conversations that we're having on a regular basis. So yeah, I would love anyone that's interested, let me know. So
Absolutely. Well, that's terrific, Cheri. Thank you so much again for joining us today. This has been an awesome episode. I think really helpful and full of practical guidance for people who are just starting out, really wanting to understand what resources to look to, how to approach kind of being an early stage startup founder. So I can't thank you enough for people who are interested in learning more about Life Snapshot, either for more information on the company, to introduce potential strategic partners, make an investment, etc. Please reach out to either Cheri or myself. And you can use the email address, founderstrustpodcast@markettrust.io. Or feel free to reach out to Cheri at Life Snapshot directly or through LinkedIn. We will be airing all sorts of additional segments to help promote Life Snapshot. Cheri, thank you so much again. This has been a terrific segment, and really looking forward to having you back on the show. If you're not too busy with national television, or willing to come back on our show, we'd love to have you anytime.
No, thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely. Thanks again, everyone. We always conclude our episodes with a free giveaway to support the entrepreneurial community. Today, we're focusing on some terrific insights from Whit at Bad Unicorn, who specializes in bringing no-code products to market. His team used the following tech stack to bring a no-code mobile notification product to market in 3 days. So here it is: Card for website building and website hosting, Zapier for integrations among the different tools, Airtable for database and information storage, Namecheap for your domain name, and finally, Twilio for your SMS messaging. Put these tools together without a lot of technical effort, and you end up with a great product that you can take to market to test your core assumptions. This is really helpful for non-technical founders who may want to whip up a quick MVP to either test a product or maybe even a feature set. For more great tips on no-code development, follow Whit on Twitter @Whit4th and check out Bad Unicorn. Thanks for tuning in for today's episode.